phoning in association with Leeds Spirits. I'm Matty, and we have a rare defeat to talk about tonight, plus possibly or probably the biggest game of the season coming up on Saturday as Hibs face Dundee United at Easter Road. Still quite a few tickets left in that Dunbar end, so if you've not already gone and got a ticket, go and get one now. Let's make sure we've got Easter Road as rammed as possible for a massive match. We've also got Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year nominations up with Hibs at the moment, and Goal of the Season candidates have been published as well for Hibs. So I'll get your thoughts on that, guys. Jeff, you were first on tonight, so I'll start with you. What do you want to kick off with?
I didn't see a lot of the game on Saturday. I was granddad duties for 3 days, which was a pleasure. This game on Saturday, like we said pre-recording, I think the mentality of this team will be that they will bounce back. And yes, it is now the biggest game of the season. Like every game in the top six will be until we've clinched third place, hopefully. So I'm hoping that. I think the team selection will be slightly different to last Saturday. We'll have more of the ball, therefore Hoylett's probably back in. Mm-hmm. And the big conundrum is, do we start with Bowie, who seems to be better coming off the bench at the moment, until he's had a full pre-season maybe, or Kukarevich, Big Miko, or some other combination? I'm not sure.
What would you do?
Start with Miko.
What's your thinking with that one?
Just with what we've seen him with Kieran Bowie coming off the bench, it seems to be more effective at the moment. He may start on Saturday and score a couple of first half goals, and I hope he does. I'd love for him to start and do well, but I'm just thinking he seems to do better against tiring defences. He scored one up at Tannadice against them last time, 2 against Dundee when he came off the bench. He's just I like him. He's my type of centre forward. But let Miko soften him up, and Miko scored against this lot as well up at Tannadice. Mm-hmm. So it's a good option to have. I would personally start with Miko probably with Boyle up front and Hoylett. That's a good little combination there.
Mm-hmm. You said that you expected the team to bounce back. What is it gives you that confidence?
Because after every the defeats we have had, Celtic at the start of the unbeaten, well, we were unbeaten, then we got beat by Celtic, then we started the proper unbeaten run. They bounced straight back. They did really well. The Cup, we drew with Kilmarnock in a game we probably should have won easily. But it was a couple of individual errors near the end of the game. It wasn't a shitstorm of a performance. So I just think the 3 games in a week when we beat Celtic, Dundee United and the Hearts, that took a lot of character. A lot of effort, and I'm just, I'm fairly confident without being overconfident and saying we're definitely going to beat them. I'm confident that we'll put up a show, and if the referee doesn't bollocks it again, we should beat them.
There was, I was thinking about this with Aberdeen winning on Saturday. Obviously, you never want to lose a game, but we had that unbeaten run hanging over us, and I always think the longer these things go on, the more that sort of plays on the players' minds rather than necessarily the game in front of them. Do you think there could be like a sort of silver lining in having the defeat at the start of the top 6 split, and that it almost refocuses the mind to say, like, we're not unbeatable, we're not just going to be able to turn up and get the result that we want. It needs to be, there needs to be like a performance, etc. there.
Yeah, it's a distraction. It's a good distraction to have, to be on that unbeaten run. I mean, it's fantastic, and it's, as others have said on this and other podcasts, it's probably something that won't happen again in our lifetimes. So I've loved it, but it must become a distraction of sorts. And maybe again, I haven't seen the whole game on Saturday. I only saw vague highlights, and from what I've heard is the talk was we went up there. Probably not to lose, or certainly in the second half. That's the impression I'm getting from what people are saying. I don't know. I think it'll. I wouldn't call it a monkey off our back, but it's a distraction. Just go now and beat Dundee United. It doesn't matter about any records. Just beat them, get 3 points, and look forward to Celtic next week.
Big game coming up. Just on YouTube, Kenny says evening all. Stevie says evening all. The game versus Aberdeen kind of felt like the one to end the run. tight game decided by a moment of quality from this. But Steve, I need you to go and check the Patreon chat, mate, if you're wanting the tickets for Dundee. Your name came out the draw, so let me know if you can take them. But have a wee look on that chat. John McGlynn said, "Evening, guys." Kenny said, "Is Joe wearing a Rangers jumper?"
No.
Joe, what an incredible slur. Kenny's last week's fall down was if you start Bowie, you need to start Nicky Cadden for ammunition. Ian says, "Hi all." Steve said, "The game changed when we took Bowie off. We offered little after that." And Ian says, "Had to come to an end, but was poor display as well. Not the end of the world as we're still third." And Ken said, "The ref watch decided Hibs' goal was a goal versus Don's no foul. The ref got it wrong. It doesn't change the result though." It'll be interesting to see if that one comes up in the VAR review, because I don't know if the referee disallowed a goal or if he gave the foul before the ball went in. Because in one circumstance, I think VAR can get involved. In the other one, it can't. I'm not sure quite
Yeah,
how it will happen.
If he's blown before it goes in, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Callum, what do you want to talk about?
I think, like, for the sort of man of the defeat wasn't the one that like concerns me. And as Jeff was saying, I think like we've got that ability to bounce back. I don't think it's going to kind of hold us back. We've done it before at the start of this run. I know there's this kind of talk going around that we played for the draw, but I think for the first half, maybe the first 15 minutes of the second half, we didn't. We were kind of the better team. Again, I had to make do with kind of highlights and the guff that Willie Miller was spouting on Sports Sound, but I think we took initiative for the most part of the game, and then obviously towards the end we maybe were a bit more cautious. But it was a game that perhaps we could have afforded to lose slightly more than Aberdeen, given that we are ahead of them in the league. So I'm not overly concerned, but I do think for the game on Saturday we need to be a bit sharper, a bit brighter, because I think in 2 of the 3 games against Dundee United, they've scored against us first in 2 of them. So we need to take it to them, because I'll tell you what, they'll be fragile on Saturday. And I guess it just leaves that question of this thing with Bowie and Miko, kind of who starts, because one seems to start well, another seems to kind of bring the ammunition towards the end of the game.
How would you play it?
I would definitely bring Hoylett back in. I know Campbell's been in and out of the team and stuff, but I would bring him back in just to get a foot on the ball higher up the park. I think we struggled to do that on Saturday, or certainly to keep hold of it at that end of the park. But I think I would probably stick with Bowie, because I just think he's maybe needing the minutes. I think the only other game he kind of the other game that he started, he performed well, was the win against Celtic. He done really well. He bullied Carter Vickers that day, showed what he was all about. So I think I'd keep Bowie in, and I'd kind of bring Hoylett in another change, and potentially Cadden. I don't think he'll beat us put a foot wrong, in all honesty, but I just think he gives you that moment of magic. I think Abita's got something like 8 assists he's named. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's always more of a threat. He seems to start higher up the park, so that would certainly be my changes for Saturday.
I always think it's a tricky one when you have one of your best players and they have like a forced absence, and the replacement does well, and you kind of deep down that they're a better option, but it's almost like you feel bad about taking the player that's playing well out of their position and put the best player back in. But I think you're probably, if you're ruthless, you need to just do it, don't you? Like I think probably Nicky Cadden gives us a bit more than Abita does. What about O'Hora? Callum, would you be happy enough to keep him in his position after he played on Saturday?
I'll be honest, it did worry me, because they obviously play with pace with Morris and the boy Niskanen, and O'Hora. He did look a bit exposed in the derby when he got injured. We saw a massive difference when Miller came on, but by all accounts on Saturday, he was fairly solid. I think if Miller was available, I think he maybe just had a flu, for what I was hearing. So I think he should be fit. If he's fit, I'd certainly bring Miller in, because he's had a bit of joy against him. He's assisted against them, scored against them, and his confidence will be high. But just going back to like talking about Cadden and Abita, I just hope that David Gray's consistent and doesn't start kind of changing shape to kind of bring players in, because when he brought Cadden on Saturday, Nicky Cadden, he brought him off. I think it was for Levitt. Yeah. So it was something we've not really done before. It didn't really work in the end, but I just hope we don't start kind of putting square pegs in round holes just to get certain players in the team. Although he's not really done that so far.
And what do you make of Dundee United? Like we've seen them obviously a few times this season. I think you were up at Tannadice, weren't you, when we won the last one? What have you thought about them in the season they've had?
The kind of I was at both games at Tannadice. They couldn't have been any different, obviously, but they matched us up in that second game. We won 3-1, and they had the three at the back, but both their right centre back and left centre back kind of got forward. They've got the boy Ferry, who I would say he's not as good as, but he's quite similar to Academy. He just gets the ball out and kind of flings it in, and also Dolby's very, very dangerous for them. But I think we've just got that. We've got that better quality. We've got that class in the middle of the park. And again, another criticism that I was reading online was about kind of Levitt and Trant's never had much in the midfield, and Campbell was again sort of getting targeted with that as he often does. But we've got the better midfield, and if we can keep the ball and just play to our strengths, like using Boyle's pace, Bowie's strength, if that's going to be the case. Miko's no bad with the ball at his feet, but we definitely need to score first, I think, because they are fragile. I did not expect. I expected Celtic to win last weekend, but I did not expect them to lose 5 goals at home. No, the way they've been playing, because I think they're one of the only few teams that did have them to that point was a positive goal difference in the league.
Be interesting to see. Like obviously Celtic had that game on Saturday that they needed to win the league. Well, I say they needed to win. Obviously, it could have rolled on to the next game week, but you know what I mean. Like if they won it, they won the league, so they put on a bit of a show. They've got Rangers at the weekend, where it's like neither of them have anything to play for, which is like a weird situation for like that particular derby. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with Celtic between now and the end of the season, how they approach their games, because I think everybody, you know, when you look at the post-split fixtures, you think the Dividends going to take anything off of Celtic, but I'm not convinced that's going to be the case. Do you see those games being pivotal at all, Callum?
It does worry me what kind of Celtic's going to turn up. I think obviously Staunch Barry's trying to get a tune at that team. He's now starting to, although he never named the players, he said in his post-match interview that he's spoke to them individually, spoke to them collectively, and they're not doing what he's asking them. So whether he's just an incompetent manager or the players just can't be asked of him, I think points are there to be had. And I think with our last game of the season, I would like to think we don't have to win that, but I think if we do, then we'll be more than capable, because they're a fucking basket case at the moment. But yeah, the big one for me is Celtic. And in fact, even St Mirren came into this top 6 with absolutely nothing to play for. There's no way they can finish anywhere other than 6th, but they got that draw with Rangers, and then obviously we're going through there on a Wednesday night, which is never easy. I think that'd be another one where, in an ideal world, we win on Saturday, then just didn't get beat when we go there. Although going to Parkhead after that, it might become a must win, but you just don't know what they're going to do, because I don't think even Postecoglou done it with Celtic team and we beat them 4-2. He didn't make mega changes. Obviously, he brought Bain and goals and stuff, but he still had like say Maida in that playing. So, and I think that one of the things that's been thrown at Rodgers is he doesn't bring many young players in. So hopefully they kind of stay as strong as possible, and they may well do that because they've got a Scottish Cup final coming up.
Yeah.
So they're going to want to keep the big hitters kind of flying.
It's one of my big hopes is that they want to put down a marker on Aberdeen when they play them, and that's they're going to do what they did to them at Hampden last time. Like, they just absolutely pump them and put down a marker and then beat them in the cup final too. Joe, I'll bring you in next. What were your thoughts on the game on Saturday?
I think it was disappointing more than anything, because it would have been the longest ever unbeaten run in the history of Hibs of 150 years had we managed to get a draw. But from what I saw on the telly, I wasn't at the game, Hibs seemed just a bit flat to me. I don't know. I think Ian would probably be at the game. I'd be interested to hear what he's got to say on that one, but it just seemed a bit flat. And it was a bit of a wonder goal that beat us. So, you know, just let's forget it. That's to one side. The long run's to one side. Let's focus on beating Dundee United on Saturday. That's the main thing. You know, I reckon if we get 7 points from the remaining games, we'll certainly be, well, if we beat Dundee United, we'll definitely be 4th. But if we get 7 points from the remaining 3 games, I'm just taking it for granted we'll get beat at Parkhead, then I think we've got a pretty good chance of getting 3rd. We'll definitely get 4th if we beat Dundee United on Saturday.
You wonder if that flat performance I don't think we were at our best. I don't know if flat would have been the word that I would have used for it, but I know what you mean. But you wonder if that, do you know, like we could afford to lose the game. Not that you would have wanted to, but a draw was a better result for us than it was for Aberdeen.
Oh, aye,
and it was
definitely.
a must-win for Aberdeen for them to get to get third. And you just wonder, I think, when you go into a game in that sort of position where you always have that bit of comfort that I don't know if that plays on your mind as a player or as a team, if it can impact how you go about. What do you think, Joe?
I think it does, but I actually think, going back to what's just been said a minute ago, I think whilst he's done great in the last 4 or 5 games, you've got to drop Obita and bring in Nicky Cadden. And I would actually play a 3-4-3. I would play Miko and Bowie and Martin Boyle up front. Christ, we're at home. We need to win the game. You know, put pressure right on them. Play a 3-4-3 with the 2 Caddens in the wings, Triantis and Apal in the middle. And I think that would be the team to win. I mean, imagine playing against both Bowie and Miko. Think about it for a minute.
So Dundee United are a big team as well. You know, like you maybe want to have that sort of physical presence up top against them.
Yeah, it's just a passing thought anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But either way,
going?
I think Hibs will win 3-1. At least.
Nice and confident then.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. Getting a first goal would obviously seal it, but I think either way, Hibs will win. We've got too much for Dundee United. I know that they're a bit dangerous up front, but we're very strong at the back by and large. I'm totally confident winning. I'm looking forward to going there and celebrating on Saturday.
And you, Levitt and Chantis, you're talking about, I think there was a bit of criticism that Callum touched on it as well, but they never really kind of got a grip of the game, I don't think, on Saturday. How important is it that those two in particular kind of influence the game?
Well, I mean, they've been a really important part of the last 5 or 6 games together. And okay, they were both, I think you call it flat last weekend, but no, they've got to be the heartbeat of the team. So I definitely keep both of them in without question.
Fair enough. Right, John, I'll come to you in just a second. Just going to grab a couple of comments off the YouTube and catch up on there. Stevie says he could take the tickets. That's great. Good stuff. Says Campbell's header should have put us 1 up. Ken says it depends who you're starting. If Bowie started Cadden, if Miko, then Hoylett. Ian said I would definitely have Miller in. Sandy said, evening lads, well done Stevie. Only 4 games till glory and I'm predicting now the lads are hurting. Dundee United will suffer for the Aberdeen loss. Kenny says Celtic will play first 11 versus Rangers, fringe player versus us, first 11 versus Dons to make a cup final statement. Jack C99 Vlogs says, hello. My prediction for Saturday is Hibs win 3-0, Bowie and Boyle and Hoylett to score. Everyone knows Jack. Jack's is occasionally on the phone and does his vlogs. So Jack's got a goal to get up to 600 subscribers before the Dundee game. Dundee United game. He's nearly there. So if you're watching this and you didn't already subscribe to Jack, go and do that. He's got a goal that his dad set him before he sadly passed away to get to 1,000 before the end of the season. So if everybody can help him out, I'm sure he'd really appreciate it. Ian said Aberdeen were there for the taking. Mind, just a pity we took that game to go off the boil. And Neil said Harry Lottery for the Hearts job. Who say Harry Lottery? Is that like I've never heard of Harry Lottery. Sorry, Neil. Right, John, I'll bring you in. What do you want to start talking about?
Well, I think that the Aberdeen game is one of those we have to be sort of a wee bit cautious as to how much we read into it. I mean, I think if you look at the first hour of the match, there's only one team that was creating chances that were reasonable, and we didn't take them. Nisbet's goal is one of those training ground flicks when you don't quite control it properly on your chest and you do the flick to get it out. He's got the skill to do it. He's not going to be a professional footballer at that level, but he will not do that shot ever again in his career. I mean, I didn't go and look at the XG on it, but that's the idea. That wasn't going in unless it dipped into the top corner. So that went against us, but we allowed it to go against us because we didn't take our own chances. So I think that's the thing that we have to take out of the game, is that as an away performance in this league against a team with a higher budget than we have, we performed well. We outperformed them for an hour. Did we fade towards the end, and did the subs seem to take us down a level? Yeah, I thought it did. But I never heard it, but I heard that somebody had been saying on the Hibs TV commentary that there'd been a bug going around these mains. I mean, so the fact that you've not got Hoyle on, you've not got a Miller on, I mean, it just shows that the depth of the squad is quite important. And if players have been playing with a white telephone, I mean, during the week, then that's going to impact you on the Saturday. So I think it's that be disappointed, be frustrated because we've set our standards and we should be winning that game, but don't bury ourselves for it. We go into Saturday on the back of I think it's six consecutive home league victories. I think since the 3-3 draw with Rangers, we've won every home league game. I mean, we are effective at home, we score goals, we restrict the opposition, the crowd's there. I expect the team to have the idea that it's their stadium. I mean, they're comfortable, they're used to the wins, the engagement's there with the fans. And so, yeah, I think it'll pick up. So I think it's don't be too down, build on what everything's been there, and it's in our own hands.
How would you set up for Saturday?
I would probably start Miko. I think would be more effective with him starting.
Mhm.
I think all his weaknesses are there. Do I think he's as good at holding the ball up as Bowie? No, but I think Bowie is far more effective in that last 30 minutes. And whether it's just a younger laddie having to learn a bit more craft against older, wiser defenders who are just a bit more tired and making less good decisions. But he's been that seems to have been the more effective. However, I don't hang anything on it. I would like to see Hoylett back in there in terms of the creativity, and I agree with the proposal that you would be bringing Cadden back on the left. I like O'Hora, but again, if we wanted to push forward, then Miller would be the option you're looking for there because a Miller Cadden on the right hand side gives us more attacking, but it then gives us two a left and right centre backs who will push up the pitch. Gives us a good long throw option. I mean, in terms of that side of the pitch. So no, the options are there. I think it'd be we're in third at the moment. If you'd offered me fifth in November, I'd have bitten your hands off for it. If you offer me fifth just now, it sounds like a pint of cold sick.
Aye. I think
it's up to us. We go and win on Saturday, and we control our own games. We've got 2 games at home that are winnable. Celtic away is always going to be hard. We've played them 3 times already at Parkhead, and we have to again. St Mirren would be the game to get that full record of beating everybody in the league. So there's so many objectives there for the team. They've shown the character to come back.
Yeah, the point you make about what we would have accepted earlier in the season and like how it appears now, I think it said a lot of the fact that Aberdeen beat us and we're still ahead of them. That to give an idea of how well the team have done since that early stage of the season to have overtaken Aberdeen and been able to afford to lose to them and still stay in front of them is.
And in that we are pissed off about drop points at St Johnstone, drop points against Ross County. I mean, we do have frustrations in there. I mean, the away performance. There's loads of things that we're saying that we can improve on, but sometimes you have to accept that when you're playing the top, the other 2 teams from Glasgow, Aberdeen and Hearts, you have to accept that they're fighting with a bigger budget than we are at the moment. So sometimes those games are going to go against us simply because they're going to be relatively close. We've done well this season on those. It's the rest of the games that we need to sort out if we're going to be successful every season.
Totally. Thanks, Sean. We're going to bring Ian in next. Ian, what have you got for us?
There was a couple of big events on Saturday. The 2016 bus, we were booked into the Nig Bay Golf Club, and I heard stories of people actually waiting 90 minutes for their food. So that was the main discussion going home. When our bus tried to leave the car park of the golf club, we were then delayed by 10 minutes by a guy blocking our path. He was jumping starting another car, and it was quite funny actually because we thought we were going to be late. The Aberdeen supporters, they were actually scared of us. That when you were talking a couple of episodes ago about our reputation about the Dundee game, Aberdeen expected us to win. The Aberdeen supporters expected us to win. They were unusually quiet, quieter than usual the whole game. And there were ecstatic celebrations when they won. It was like us beating Celtic. It was amazing. I predicted us winning 3-0 because I thought we would go and attack, and we didn't. We didn't play Nicky Cadden. We got the tactics wrong. We played our normal game of giving them the ball and trying to hit them on the break, and it failed. Derek McGuinness guessed we would, and was basically set up to negate that. And they did the same to us. The only Aberdeen attacks actually were long balls. I mean, I think on the highlights you only see the one where it was disallowed, whereas we knew it was offside right away because there'd been, I think, 5 previous offsides for the same thing. And they played 4 forwards for a lot of the game. I couldn't believe it. They played 4 forwards just to capitalise on these long balls, but they didn't capitalise on them because we stopped them. So one of the big successes was actually Obita and Josh Campbell closing down Shea Logan, who I felt was their biggest threat, and they actually double teamed them quite a lot. If you watch the game, if you watch it back on Hibs TV, you'll see they actually double teamed them and they stopped them overlapping. It was great. The defence were absolutely fabulous throughout, and it was a great performance from Smith, obviously just at the end, but terrific saves. So, you know, if we had been nothing each at that point when these saves came, it would have been great. But the goal was scored, as John said, the goal was scored because it was a lob and the top corner. That's exactly that. If you look at the defence, set up, if you just freeze the picture, you'll see the defence are spread across just like they normally do to block, because that's what they practice. So it was a great goal. Kevin Nisbet. I mean, I don't know if you remember his goal against Arbroath, up at Arbroath. He scored a fantastic goal when nobody was expecting him to shoot. And it was that quality, which I've very rarely seen with Kevin, actually. But I think the thing that amazed me is we hardly got the ball to Cadden at all. We were all down the left. And I assume, I'm not smart enough to understand why, but I assume Aberdeen was stopping us getting to Cadden, rather than it being our game plan. Because literally, if you watch it, we never get to the byline. We never once get to the byline. We cut it back. And I think it must have been an Aberdeen tactic because Triantis was missing in action. I assume this is because of the way Aberdeen played, but recently it's been Levitt running the game and releasing Triantis to then have this roaming free role. But he didn't do anything. He didn't perform at all. But Levitt did his job. Triantis struggled to have any impact. And Aloha Hora had an excellent game. And he had an unbelievable save and tackle. I hope people saw that.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Yeah. And I think it was Rocky had one a few months ago. And if we were voting on tackle of the year, it would be these two. But it was a tremendous tackle because it was a certain goal. But Aloha Hora was brilliant in defence. Lewis Miller's innovation, that was clearly missing. So in my view, it was a good decision to bring in Josh Verhoeven because Hoylett was the poorest performer last week. Definitely. Josh had lots of headers, as normal. Defensive headers, great. And he's attacking flick-ons, but he wasn't linking up. And I assume that was because Bowie wasn't used to playing with him. But usually you get a smart player playing with Josh who anticipates the flick-on. Usually Boyle, actually. Obviously, Boyle should hit the target with his shot. Rocky should score. And it was obviously a bit embarrassing when the referee signalled for a foul and we thought it was signalling for a goal. And I didn't realise how obvious that would be until I saw the highlights, and I was embarrassed all over again. I was cheering like mad. The subs are obviously shambolic and ineffective. I think we ended up with Martin Boyle at right back. So my summary of the game is basically another lesson learned for Sir David. Attacking is a better way of achieving a draw rather than trying to defend it. But it was funny, I was standing next to a Long Bangers listener, Gordon Fifruki, and his bairns. And we had this guy behind us who kept saying, it's Gray's fault, we left ourselves open. But he was one of these guys who predicts that we're going to fail, and then he's almost ecstatic. that we're actually where we fail. So he was ecstatic when we lost, you know.
Aye, weird, eh? Well, you mentioned about us not really kind of attacking down the right-hand side and Cannon being starved of service.
Yeah.
How much of that do you think was down to the fact that it was O'Hora and not Miller that was playing behind him?
I don't think it was that. There was lots
Nah.
of opportunities to use Chris Cadden. It would have meant Levitt having to chip the ball over the heads of somebody. So instead of having along the the normal out ball where it's Rocky to O'Hora or Miller and then the pass up the side, you see Miller overlapping, and obviously O'Hora didn't. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was actually getting the ball to Cadden in the first place. Cadden was in the right position. And I assumed that Aberdeen were somehow stopping that but Levitt would have had to chip the ball over an Aberdeen player rather than play it along the ground. But I'm not a tactical genius at all, but Aberdeen stopped us playing.
And you mentioned the celebrations at the end as well for the Aberdeen players and fans. Like, I mean, they definitely meant a lot. I think we talked about it on Sunday. There was a wee nod back to when Dundee United beat us at Christmas time when we were in the championship. Do you think the Hibs players going off the park will have paid attention to that and use that as a wee bit extra motivation for the rest of the season?
I don't think they saw it, because what happened was the Hibs team came over to us, and we were all, I mean, admittedly, half the Hibs support left, including the morning-faced bastard behind us. But half the Hibs supporters left, but Block 7 and quite a lot of us stayed to cheer the Hibs team, because it's obviously a hell of an achievement, as Joe said, getting to 17. But then we started David Gray, and that was brilliant, because that was just recognising the fact that recognising the achievement. So it was great. I don't think the Hibs players saw the Aberdeen the sort of parade that they did or whatever the hell they did, but they went nuts. The Aberdeen players went nuts at the end of the game. They definitely were. That was a really big deal for them winning.
Their fans got quite carried away with it in social media after as well, which was it surprised me. They call us bottle jobs. I still can't get my head. One boy was like, typical Hibs, like shat the bed as are bottle jobs. And I like reminding them, I was like, you were like 25 points ahead of us in November, and we're still ahead of you now. And then they talked to us about fucking shit in the bed.
And of course, as soon as the whistle went, they started playing Liberal till us apart again. As soon as the whistle went, that's what they started up with. You know,
self-awareness isn't a great thing with football fans, eh?
Right,
thanks. Ian. I'm going to bring Stephen in next. Stephen, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you, gentlemen. How are you all?
And what do you want to start with?
Probably just follow on with the Aberdeen chat. I was out for the day with my wife and the wee one, so I only really caught some of it in the radio. And just to echo what Callum said, Willie Miller pretty much blew his trousers off when the goal went in. It was actually embarrassing. It's a similar manner to Alan Preston covering Hearts games. I actually cannot believe that they have literally fans of clubs covering games on a national broadcast radio. I find that remarkable, to be honest. To be fair, it was an exceptional goal, and from the highlights that I seen earlier today, it looked like that game had 0-0 written all over it until a moment of brilliance. And similar to the weekend before Aberdeen, they, despite circa 3 million being spent on players, they're shit. Honestly, they are just, bar a couple of decent players, I think they are extremely ineffective, and it took a bit of brilliance to beat us. Because on the highlights, you could be forgiven for knowing what kit Jordan Smith was wearing until the latter stages of the second half, because he just wasn't in any of the highlights at all until the disallowed goal, and then obviously the goal. And then I think once we had opened up and were playing Boyle at right back, they got a couple more chances. But it just seemed like it was a game that I wouldn't say we set up to necessarily draw. We always obviously set up to not get beat. But it just seemed one of the games where neither team looked particularly potent in front of goal, and it's taken a really, really good goal, because in the highlights I noticed that the header out makes it to the 18-yard line, but Nisbet's actually, rather than running and turning back, he's actually backing up whilst facing forward. So you have to tip your hat and say it's a brilliant, brilliant goal, and that really is what separated two fairly on the day ineffective teams. We didn't have a shot on target. If Campbell's header and Rocky's header goes in, that game's done. There's no way they're coming back to 2-0. So it's just massively disappointing that we just couldn't hold on for another 10 minutes. But we reset and go again. And you could see in the post-match press conference how gutted David Gray really, really was. And hopefully he's using that as a motivation going into Saturday.
How did you see it going on Saturday?
Dundee United are a funny one. We've said this in the calls before, that I don't think Dundee United are a particularly good team. They're a team that seem to be operating at a level better than their own ability, which is probably credit to Goodwin and the signings he's made and the spirit he's managed to get out of the team. But if you look at the 3 games before Celtic, I think they won all 3 of them 1-0. Those 1-0 games could have went either way. So they got 3 wins in a row, 3 back-to-back clean sheets, and then they get absolutely molested off Celtic. So you would think that they would try and be a bit more tighter defensively, which probably plays into our strengths. And I would agree with the folk that have said we need to get Cadden back in. I'm a big fan of Abita, but if you've got Abita and Cadden both fit, you go with Cadden, especially at home. So I would definitely get Cadden back in. I'm not sure I'm quite as frivolous as Joe going 3 up top, but I certainly think we need to get Cadden back in. I would get Hoylett back in because I know he was ineffective for large spells against Dundee, but we need to. This game is by some distance the biggest game of the season because immediately after that we've got Celtic, and law of averages dictates that you'll probably get beat at Celtic, even though they've got one eye in the cup final. I'm not sure who Aberdeen play after St Mirren at the weekend, but the key to it is what I think it was Zilla John said. If you keep it in your own hands, that's the key to it. To me, is that we keep it in our own hands, and if that mantra changes, then that's when I would start to get worried. But yeah, we need to go not gung ho on Saturday, but I think they will be a bit more cagey than we will be. So if we can get the first goal, I'm pretty confident we'll win.
I think Aberdeen have got so they've got St Mirren, and I think they'll have both Old Firm to play.
Oh, they will
one
be.
after the other because they played Dundee United the last game. It's like a fascinating end to the season. I can't folk moan about the split and everything, and obviously it'd be nice to have third place wrapped up already, but I don't think you can tell how the season's going to go. Like the third place is still bang up for grabs, and like one result can swing it either way. So I think I love the split. They're interesting when they talk about league reconstruction, Stephen, and increasing potentially the number of teams because they ruled out the 10-team league. Would you be in favour of like a 14-team league?
Yeah, I remember this came up a few weeks ago. I think I'm probably in favour of potentially going above 14. I think on that call I'd mentioned, I can't remember if it's the Dutch league or another league where they have, I think they have 2 or 3 groups within it, and then have like a Europe. It might be the Dutch league that's a European group between I think 2nd and 6th for the remaining Champions League players or something. I'm all for league reconstruction, although the statement that came out suggests that it's certainly for the top flight absolutely off the table now. So yeah, I mean the split's great if you're in the top 6. If you're in the bottom 6, it's miserable. It's absolute. I remember going to a game, God, it must be 22, 23 years ago when Partick Thistle first came back up under John Lambie. I remember they beat us at Easter Road, and I think it might have been the last home game of the season, and there was me and about 14 other people there. It was fucking awful. So top 6 is great, bottom 6 is miserable.
It's a good point you made there about attendances. There's been a bit of noise about Hibs fans having sold out yet for Saturday, and there was I can't remember who it was. I think it was Pretty Boy on Hibsnet had quoted just like a few years back, like not even going that far back, games where we were going for maybe third, and there was 11,000 there. I think and there's going to be like easy 17,000, 18,000 there on Saturday. So I think the crowd's definitely not going to be as low as folk are making out. We'll move on to like the player of the year. I'll start with you, Stephen. The nominations came out. Obviously, when Hibs put it out, they just put every first team player, and you can pick who you want. They don't narrow it down to nominees. Who's your player of the year so far?
It's a funny one because for me the player of the year vote kind of starts from November onwards. Everything before that, everybody's as low as one another. I'd probably have to go with, mainly because of the consistency and the impact he's made, more or less out of the blue. I'd have to go with Iredale. He's probably been mine because Cadden's been great, but Cadden's obviously had a couple of injuries and setbacks as well. But Iredale for me probably nicks it because of the level of consistency.
Interesting. Jeff, I'll come to you next, and I'll ask you the same question. We'll just kind of go around the table, so if you all have a think who it is, and I'll just, if if you're watching on YouTube as well, you can chuck in the comments to say who you would have for your player of the year, and then once we've done that, we'll get the young player as well. So Jeff, there's there are a few candidates that stand out for player of the year. Who gets your vote?
I'm with Steve. If we go from November when we turn the corner, there's Rocky, there's Ardale, Triantis. Nicky Cadden is probably just behind that group despite his fantastic assist. You got Boyle as well, who's come onto a wee bit of form. But I'll go for Rocky just for the talismanic effect he's had with his goals, and he just attracts the ball, when he plays. And I may have mentioned I might have been an ex-centre forward when I was younger, and play someone like Rocky is a fucking nightmare. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, and unless you trick him or he makes a mistake, or you move on to the other centre half and try and get some joy out of there. And then we've got Ardale and Miller, who's come on to some great form. So I'll give them the player of the season to Rocky at the moment. Yeah,
to Rocky. It's crazy when you think at the start of the season, and we had Ekpateta and O'Hara had come in, and everybody just kind of assumed that was Rocky's time was up, and he found himself out of the team. It's some comeback really for him to have come back into the team and performed the way that he has done, but also to continue to get better week on week as well.
And try and ram that he's got a mistake in him narrative down those fuckers over in the West Coast who never see all the games. That annoys me. Every defender's got a mistake in them.
Aye.
It's just like, anyway, I won't go on about that.
No, you find Rob McLean mentioned it on Red TV on Saturday. He threw that line in early on. It's an interesting thing watching a game with the opposition commentary on how much you. I found how much I can't imagine everybody does it, but how much I swear at a TV and tell somebody they're a fucking arsehole. Because that was when he's got a mistake in him. I think that's what I shouted there. And I think my wife's looking at me at one point and she's like, "Can I hear you? I don't care. I'm still getting it off my chest."
That was a team that had Rubicic in it. Now, if everyone had a mistake in them, it was that fucker. Gee whiz!
He chipped Boyle for a dive when Boyle had been fouled, and then watched Shinnie do the Shinnie flop or the Presley flop, depending on what you want to call it, and just ignored it. And there was literally no touch on him as well. It was a blatant dive, and he just let that one go. And I shouted all sorts of him. Right, Callum, who you got for your player of the season?
I voted for Nicky Cadden, but I was thinking back to like sort of the highs of the season and just the amount of kind of highs he's been involved in, whether it's being the assist at Tiny or even like he put the cross in before Ardale's goal. I just think he was one of the ones that I think I mentioned it last week about like being like a catalyst in terms of being like a leader, setting standards. And I just think since he got fit, I'm sure he played the St John's game, maybe 1-2-0 on that. Kim Pilker got sent off. And then he kind of struggled with fitness, but since he came back, I just think he's kind of led by example, and he's been so important, and he's scored some fucking cracking goals in between as well. But I was swaying between him and Iredale for my vote, but I just think he's just given us some magic moments that will kind of live long in the memory. So he was mine.
I'm trying to remember when we did an extra time at the turn of the year where we review our pre-season predictions, and I can't remember what the conversation was about player of the year. And I think if I remember right,
cancel it.
I can't. But I think because things have started to turn around by then, and I'm sure it was almost like it was a given it was going to be one player. But I can't remember if it was Triantis or if it was Cadden. But it just shows you, like, I'm not sure Triantis is still. I think he'll be there or thereabouts for player of the year. I think he's more likely to get a young player, but it just shows you how the performances have sort of changed over the season.
Yeah, there's been a bit of discussion as well on the kind of on other forums, and they were saying it on Sports Sound as well about how there was no Hibs was in the team of the year. And to add to the fucking arsehole list, that Rory Loy, my God. So somebody had said, why is Bashiri not in the team? And you got the usual mistake in him and stuff like that. But he's like, he didn't start playing well until December. So, because he wasn't in the fucking team until December. Like I think his first start was maybe the Dundee game. I appreciate it was a shit game, but since then he was a massive part of the 17-game unbeaten run. And they just, I know it's player of the season, but like Levitt didn't start a game until December as well. So it's not the players' fault that they didn't start before then, but they've been responsible for like a massive turnaround, and they're so blinkered and so biased, and obviously I've not got a pal with a dodgy stick, so like I've got to listen to them if I'm not at a game, and it fucking grinds my gears. It really does.
Aye, it's annoying, eh? Joe, what about who have you got for your player of the season?
It's a difficult one because it's been a real team performance, hasn't it? You could say Nicky Cadden, you could say Rocky, but I think if you look to the run that started with a 3-3 draw for Aberdeen, two players started then, Rocky and Jordan Smith. He has a shout for Player of the Year. Now, he doesn't do the dramatic things that some of the Nicky Caddens of this world do, or Martin Boyle or whatever, but Jordan has been a huge part of our success this season. I think probably with the nod, it would go to the cult player, Rocky. I hope Rocky does get it, because it might persuade him to sign the contract to stay.
That would be another nice wee bonus. Although I think there's some chat that he didn't announce new contracts now until we've kind of nailed the league position. The results doesn't matter. Sandy said Player of the Year Nicky Cadden, Green Tea voted for Jack and Nectar. Haley said I'm off to Player of the Year next week. Hopefully a better atmosphere than last year and better than the other side of the cities. That was a good laugh as well. The camera crews try to catch the Hearts players and that.
Who decides the Player of the Year? Who is it makes a decision?
For the team one.
Yeah.
So it's a fan vote. So if you're on the mailing list, you should have had an email out for Hibs to vote on it. I don't know if they do a players player in that as well. I can't remember. Vince said Rocky and Triantis. Sandy said Nectar. Young player, goal of the season, Iredale versus the Jambos. Sandy said Iredale for Player of the Year and Miller as young player. And Sandy said Jordan Smith, goalie of the year. John, for you, who's your Player of the Year?
I think it's Boyle in my head. I think we're judging him against the speed that he's had in previous seasons, but in terms of our move to playing two players up top, he's had to change his game. We've all seen that Martin Boyle wants to score a goal, doesn't necessarily pass the ball. I mean, moments in a game, but they've become much fewer. I think that he has played that role as a second striker with a young striker mostly beside him in Kaharovic or Bowie brilliantly. And I think the goal contributions that he's put in have been really important in terms of the run that we've had since November. And I think it's just the idea that there's a standard that we expect to Boyle that means that it's easier to look at other players. Nicky Cadden has been fabulous. Jordan Smith hasn't lost a home game since he came in. I mean, there are so many players. Iredale on the left-hand side, and the partnership that he's done with Nicky has been brilliant. So it's not like we've had in previous seasons where it's really easy because you're choosing the best of a bad bunch. I mean, you've got genuine competition and a good team, and it just depends what part of the pitch you're interested in. I mean, for me, I've liked to see Boyle. I know the captaincy on the pitch can seem a bit less, but we've seen lots of players over the year crumble. I mean, when they've just been asked to take that bit of responsibility. He's not one that I thought could handle it, if I'm brutally honest. And maybe that's part of the reason I'm leaning towards him. But no, and again, I think, that's it. Everybody else deserves it. There's no wrong answer tonight. I mean, every player that's going to be mentioned tonight is worthy of it. And it's the first time in years where they should probably have five of them up on the stage.
That's got a good shout, eh? It's like a big collective. I think if we've done that before, a collective Player of the Year. Boyle's numbers speak for themselves as well. Aye, five-a-side team of the year. Boyle's best goal scoring season, I think, for us. I'm sure I read, and I think he's top for assists as well. So the numbers back up your opinion, John.
As I say, but it's more that attitude and the way that he's played up the top. And when we play Boyle, the teams drop. The teams that we're playing drop an extra 5 to 10 yards still. I mean, because they know that his turn and run, and then let's be honest about the goal at Ibrox, irrespective of what people are saying about the pass through to him, was brilliant.
Aye, terrific goal. Ian, how about you? Where do you stand in your Player of the Year choice?
I keep repeating my view that there was no turnaround in player performances. So there's no turnaround, only in results and our luck. And the luck ran out against Aberdeen, of course. But I think it's an incredible achievement for Ellie Adams to be nominated for both Young Player of the Year and Player of the Year. I have no memory of any player ever doing that before. So Ellie Adams being nominated for both is incredible, but also Grant Scott and David Gray as Manager of the Year. Mm-hmm. That's incredible to think that the club is, and as you said, I think it was you said when you were talking about Marky Mackay, I mean, how else can somebody be judged? We've got a team that's top of the league, a team that's third in the league, and both our head coaches have been nominated for Manager of the Year.
But and the academy knocking on the door of the title there as well.
Yeah, exactly. You made that point. But Iredale for me, Player of the Year. A young player, I put Dylan Levitt. He's our player, and I don't think a Player of the Year should be a lone player. My goal of the year was actually Nicky Caddens against Aberdeen, the free kick, because I hadn't seen that quality of free kick since Ryder or Griffiths, and I just thought, wow, it was just incredible at the time. So that's my votes.
The mad thing about that goal for Nicky Caddens, because I watched the Hibs tweeted them all, and you could watch the contenders, and you forget how good that goal was for Cadden. It was totally overshadowed because had the game just finished right after that, we would have been buzzing about it for ages. Tommy McCadden being the turning point for the season, and what a goal today, and it would have been right up there, forefront of everybody's mind. But it was overshadowed by a total sclaff for Rocky.
Yeah, that's right. And
you're
right about it being overshadowed. I'd forgotten about it until I saw the clips. Can I just say to Joe and anybody else, it's not. I didn't get an email. About my votes. I don't know what's going wrong with the email system, but you just go to the website, Joe, and there's a link there. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, Stephen, your young player.
I'm with you, and I don't want to vote for a lone player as young player. If I had that ability to do so, I'd probably go for Triantis, but I'd probably go for the turnaround in what I believed he was capable of. I'd have to go for Miller.
Good shout. I think the age of the young players is going up as well. It's something that totally grinds Collins because he goes on about it. Normally, because I think Josh Campbell won it when he was about 28. But I'm sure there was Levitt, and I can't remember who the other one are like 25 this year, which is kind of is pushing it for a young player. But we didn't make the rules, so you can have it. Jeff, what about you? Who's your young player of the year?
Triantis.
So you know why about the lone player?
No, I'll take the lone part of it. Just look at the team. He's been an integral part of the team. He might be ours at the end of the season. You never know. We might stump up some money for him. But I see the argument for it. He should be one of our own. But you look at some of the goals he's laid on, and interceptions, and the goals he's actually scored. Miller runs him a close second recently. Now he's playing at right centre back. Before that, he was nowhere near Young Player of the Year, but he's come with a late charge up the inside. But I think Triantis, just for his, he has some games where he goes missing against Celtic. I never saw him on Saturday, but apparently he was non-existent on Saturday. But he's a young player, so they're going to have games like that, especially in midfield. But yeah, generally he's been a shining light in that team.
And not quite an ever-present, but I would, if somebody put me on the spot and said who's had the most appearances for Hibs this season, Chanis would probably be the player that I would suggest it was. I don't know, I haven't fact-checked it, but I think he's probably played more games than anybody else this season as well.
Yeah, possibly. He came in against Kilmarnock. That was his first game, him and Quan, and they looked like a dynamic duo against Kilmarnock that game. He was like a young Busquets was Triantis. With my Hibs tinted glasses on. It probably is. I'm trying to think. Yeah, maybe. You're probably right. I can't think. Boyle, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe Boyle as well. Boyle got dropped for a wee spell as
did,
well.
Yeah.
So,
got sent off. He missed the start of the season.
Right enough, yeah. So you could be right.
Yeah, but Gray rates him because he puts him just about straight back in every game. And when you noticed last season when Gray took over from Monty, his major change was trying to straight into midfield, and he dropped Marcondes and made us a lot more solid.
What about your goal of the season?
Oh, it's nice to have so many, like the player of the season. It's nice to have so many contenders, and I keep changing my mind, but I'm going to stick with the one I sent in on the Hibs email. I'm going for Iredale just for the occasion. Just fantastic. Score one of them against one of those Thunder bastards against them, and to win the game, and just the whole surrounding. But it could have been Nicky Cadden quite easily. The other one I really like, just for the movement, is Dwight Gales at Tiny. He starts the move and finishes it, and it's just sweet football all the way. He's up at Tannadice. What a ball from Triantis. He just perfect. All they do is run onto it and batter it, which right behind it, he did. Yeah, but anyway,
that pass was brilliant. I watched that again today, and actually a really good move. You know, when you see it back, a wee bit intricate play in the midfield, and the pass for Triantis is absolutely sublime.
It was the only one we did second half, apart from the third goal after it. But yeah, that was like
just on that pass. Like you, Matty, I just watched it as well. Yesterday it was. One of the things to notice is when you see it from behind, you'll see that Triantis actually celebrates before Cadden hits the ball. Sorry, before Bowie hits the ball. It's incredible. He does a pass, and it's like he puts his hands up in the air before Bowie actually hits it.
It's confidence, eh? Callum, I can't remember if you give me a young player while you were talking or not under a goal. So if you did apologise for making you repeat yourself, if you didn't, you can tell us what you would have picked.
No, my vote was Giannis, and I'm literally going to repeat what Jeff said. I think the only game he's actually missed was the game he was suspended for. He started every single game that he's been available for, and I think because he's a genuine young player, there is games where he's not performed, but he'll learn from that. And I really hope that we either stump up the money or we speak next to Bournemouth, because according to some interview that his agent done, there's teams in Europe that are looking at him, and there's a real focus for him now to obviously push on to the Australian national side. So I think we need to get him. He's an absolute gem of a player. The way he looks, it looks effortless at times, and it takes a lot to look that good. So he's my vote. And what's this Iredale goal you're talking about? Because I can't remember that one. But no, that's for me, and just for Marvin Bartley's commentary as well. The hit it, and then I think he even starts laughing at one point. It's just like pure elation. That's the goal of the season. At least it's better. Remember when it was the goal of the season award, and it was like Stevie Malin had about 6 of his goals for all. It was all Stevie Malin goals for the entire season.
Just a showreel for Stevie Malin. Joe, your goal of the season?
Iredale, without question.
And your young player?
It might surprise you to hear me saying Dylan Levitt. He's our player. I mean, I hear what the boys are all saying about Triantis, but he's our loan player, whereas Dylan is our player.
Do you think we'll extend Dylan's contract? He's got a year left on it after this season. Do you think we'll see him a bit longer term?
Well, I hope so, because, I rate him very highly. But, I mean, I think he's done enough in the last 6 or 8 weeks to earn himself an extension, for sure. I mean, Iredale got an extension. And, I think, especially if Triantis leaves, we're still a bit thin in midfield. You want to retain somebody of Levitt's quality, and he's got quality as a goal maker.
He's definitely improving week to week. Another one of these players. John, what about you?
This would be my young player of the year. I've forgiven him for going down too easily for his attempt to try and get a penalty earlier in the season. I think he has become a fairly solid rock in there in terms of the midfield. He's a first choice in that position. He's a Hibs player at the moment. I understand what people are saying is that he'll go to another club at the end of the year, but Rocky could go to another club at the end of the year. I mean, he's a Hibs player at the moment. He pulls his shirt on, so he's got every right to be in that. That's where I come from on it. Goal of the season, Tynecastle, Dwight Gale. Former Newcastle striker, scoring against a former Sunderland goalie. I mean, the move, it's not till afterwards that you look at it, because I mean, Jeff talks about the movement, but it starts before then. We forced the Hearts goalie into a stupid punt out the pitch, which we then win at the halfway line. I mean, Dwight goes and picks it up at the edge, Cadden puts it in the middle, and that's when Triantis, misses out a pass straight out to Cadden. And Cadden does what he's done all season, and which is why he's getting talked about in terms of player of the year. Just a lovely bended cross with that left foot. And it just kisses the boot. It's no hit, it's caressed or kissed or whatever lovely little adjective you want to put in there. And you could just, the whole stadium just fell. They had been mocking us because of the Rocky own goal. And it was a point in the season where things could have turned and gone against us. And I think that was so important. But I celebrated Iredale's goal with everybody else in the stadium, and we'll remember it for years.
Matty, can I just say something about Levitt?
Yes.
I was thinking about this yesterday, I think it was. Obviously, I'm from the Tumbos Tornadoes generation, whereby I thought they were a fabulous team. But this team have obviously beaten their records in terms of everything except the kind of style of football they played. And I was trying to think about if we got anybody that's like my favourite player, right? So there you go, Alec Cropley, right? And this a photo just happened to have. And Cropley was an incredible player. And, you know, we've got, Dylan Levitt is the nearest thing we've got to that type of player. That amount of skill. So he's like between Alec Edwards and Cropley. They were fantastic players, but we need somebody like Levitt in the team. We need somebody who's really smart and can see a pass. So I think we should hold on to Levitt.
Okay, Ian, well, the quick score prediction for Saturday. Go around the table, and that's us. We're out of time, so I'll wrap up there. But I'll get a score for everybody.
Me first. I've no fucking clue, because I predicted we win 3-0, so I've not got a fucking clue. I'll give up predictions.
Right, question mark for you, Stephen.
Just very quickly on the goal of the season. I'll go with Cadden's volley up at Pittodrie, because all the other goals have been mentioned. I thought that was a brilliant technique to score the goal. I'll go 2-0 Saturday.
Nice one. John?
I think it'll be 3-1.
To the good guys?
Oh, absolutely. Always. Continue the home record. Jordan Smith hasn't lost.
Joe, I think you said 3-1 earlier on. Are you sticking with that?
No, I think I'm going to jump on the fact that Ian's not going to give a vote. I'll take 2 goals for him and add my 3-1, so 5-1 for the Hibs.
5-1 the Hibs. Right, Jeff, last word to you.
A nervy 1-0. I hope it's not, but I'd settle for 1-0 at the moment. That'll do me.
I was going to say, Hibs have just announced it's actually available pay-per-view to everybody on Saturday. SFA have given a dispensation.
Nice one. And John McGlynn predicted 16-2 to Hibs. There you go in the YouTube comments. So fingers crossed. Right, thanks very much for tuning in. If you don't already, head over to our Patreon, etc., and you can get some extra content there. We always post the phone-in details there as well. So if you want to join in rather than watching, you just need to get on to Patreon. You'll see the details there. Everybody, thanks for coming on, and we will